Olufemi Ademoye, known as Femi, was an educated pharmacist and businessman in the country of Nigeria. In 1992, he would ask Juliet Alawateyan if he could be her Romeo, and they would marry. And baby makes 3. Juliet would give birth to a baby boy they would name Sean. Femi was happy, but he longed for the American dream and a life in America. Despite some closest to him telling him to stay in Nigeria, he would follow his heart and head to America. He resided on 8615 Villa Largo Drive in Tampa, Florida. Not long, his wife Juliet arrived with their son Sean. The couple was well respected in this community, and Femi owned several businesses. One of the businesses was a thriving African eatery his wife would run. On the outside looking in, people closest to this couple looked up to them. They seemed to be successful at everything they did, and they had it all. But on the inside, something was very different. Almost 17 years later, arguments of infidelity on both parts, jealousy, and even rumors of physical abuse was being said. Leading up to the fateful day, their son was now 16 years old. He was off on a class trip to Europe, which led Femi and his wife to be alone in their Tampa home, and the pair was not seeing eye to eye on anything at all. Femi claims he found emails shortly after Juliet had came back from a visit to Nigeria. She had written her ex-lover over there, which wasn't so ex, according to the emails. Femi said the two were still involved. Juliet had emailed this man pictures of their son Sean, saying that Sean was his. Femi was finding out in the emails that Juliet wasn't happy anymore and planned to leave the marriage. Juliet was involved with one of the highest practitioners of voodoo in a cult in Nigeria. Femi said his wife had even started doing voodoo after she had came back from Nigeria, a claim that Sean would later dispute in court on behalf of his mother. He confronted Juliet about his findings, but the couple just argued. Back home, it was the ultimate sin in Nigeria that she would have had a child out of wedlock. He felt Juliet married him because she was pregnant and by another man. He called everyone back in Nigeria and told them that his wife had been involved in such sins all these years as punishment to her. He decided to sleep in Sean's room, not wanting to argue with Juliet anymore that night. Out of Femi's own mouth, he felt that Juliet was ashamed of her behavior, running around from male to male in Nigeria and now America. A claim, I need to add, that Juliet's family says is false. The morning of June 16th, 2010, Femi would run out of his house in his boxers, screaming for the neighbors or anyone to hear him for help. He said his wife was suffering a heart attack. By the time paramedics had arrived, inside the home was a screaming, distraught, and irate man. Neighbors had already been inside the home, and they were watching in horror at what was going on. There wasn't anything that the paramedics could do. Juliet had been dead for quite some time. Rigor mortis had already set in. There was blood everywhere, all over Juliet, the bed sheets, the pillows, and the walls. How was this a heart attack when there was so much blood surrounding her body? Still in his boxers, Femi was taken to the police station. Police hadn't said he was a suspect. They needed to remove him from seeing his wife. It was devastating to him. During the interview or interrogation, depending on how you feel about this situation, Femi would come clean. He said the night before there was a physical altercation between him and his wife. He said Juliet had tried to attack him with a bat. She had managed to accidentally hit herself as he grabbed the bat from her. He said he then headed to Sean's room to go to sleep. Meanwhile, Juliet went inside the bathroom. He believed in there she may have fallen and hit her head on the toilet. He also tells police he believes that Juliet was using voodoo to cleanse herself of being shunned and shamed. This was needed to be done from her life now and her afterlife. Femi believed, while involved in her cleansing, Juliet may have cut herself during her own voodoo practice with the knife wounds and the deep cuts all over her body too deep, but she did not cry out or ask for help, though she believed she deserved it. There was blood smeared all over the walls. Femi said it was part of the culture, explaining the blood was found throughout the house as a result of Juliet walking around after she did this. This is what Femi said. She bled to death by the actions caused by herself. Femi requested to make a phone call, which he was allowed to do during this interrogation. The police left, giving him privacy. He did not know that the session was being recorded. He spoke in his native tongue. A translator would have to translate what Femi had actually said. He was asking for forgiveness from Jesus over and over. Why would Femi ask for forgiveness if Juliet slipped and hit her head? Or if she had cut too deep, believing that she deserved this for her sins? Meanwhile, Femi and Juliet's home is being searched. The knife that was found is cleaned and bent in the kitchen sink. The baseball bat is found bloody and hidden inside Sean's room, where Femi said he had slept that night. While Femi is arrested in the death of his wife, Sean is being notified in Europe what has happened to his parents back in Florida. On January 14th, 2015, while in court, did Femi have anything to do with his wife's death, or did Juliet die at her own hands after trying to use a voodoo spell to rid herself of her shame? People to this day are divided with what had happened to Juliet Ademoye. However, Florida court system wasn't. Olufemi Ademoye, now 56 years old, was sentenced to 30 years in prison with the possibility of parole on November 9th, 2039.